Virginia is going bowling for the first time in 6 years. The Cavaliers taking on Navy. The midshipmen finishing up another campaign, their 13th postseason play in 14 years. The two teams get together at the Military Bowl on December 28th. We bring in Matt Trogdon from Streaking the Law on the SB Nation platform for Virginia Athletics. Matt, Virginia back in postseason play. Welcome back. You knew that that was inevitable after gaining that sixth victory at 6-4 at the time. Just your thoughts about getting back into postseason play.
It's great, Mark. Thank you for having me. Like you said, Virginia back in the bowl game for the first time since 2011. And Cavalier fans seem to be pretty excited about this. The Military Bowl is in Annapolis, Maryland. That's a close drive for Virginia fans from the Commonwealth and from the D.C. area. Last I heard, Virginia had sold percent of its bowl ticket allotment. There were only maybe 200 tickets left for UVA on the UVA section, so that's great news. Going from 2-10 to 6-6 is a great step forward for the program and a great step forward for Bronco Mendenhall's rebuilding job, and I think that the Wahoo faithful are excited about it.
I don't in any way want to put any kind of damper on the opponent or the setting or anything like that, but going on the road, you're taking on an American Conference team.
Sure.
Any thoughts about that in particular?
I wrote about this on streakingthelaw.com a couple of weeks ago. I really thought this was, my opinion, I thought this was the perfect bowl game, the right game at the right time for Virginia. Just as far as where Virginia is in the rebuild, it's still kind of a fragile rebuild. I think fans are still, sort of in completely. And so I think going to a bowl game right next door in Annapolis, which is a close drive for folks, getting a chance to see the team play and playing against an opponent that is in the same weight class, Navy and Virginia. I think I saw on Bill Connolly's S&P Plus ratings last week, I think Virginia was ranked 77th and Navy was ranked 78th. So, they're going to go there with a great chance to win. And I really think that's what the program needed right now. There had been some chatter that Virginia might have been headed to the Pinstripe Bowl in New York City. And while I think that would have been a cool experience, I don't think they would have seen as much fan support as far as fans traveling. And then playing a team like Iowa, I think would have been a tougher row to hoe. So I think this is a great game for UVA at this point in the program's trajectory.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid perspective from that standpoint. The metrics tell us that it's an even matchup, as you mentioned, even the advanced metrics. And then looking at this tier of bowl game for a Power Five, just look back one season, Temple and Wake Forest. Wake Forest in a similar position as Virginia in trying to become bowl eligible and it not being a sure thing, getting to that point and pulling off a nice win against a strong Temple team. Navy, obviously a national brand for differing reasons, and certainly a team that gains the national attention with that Army showdown that they have each and every year, losing that one for the second consecutive time after a long string of victories. The first thing that comes to mind in analyzing your football team, Matt, would be the play of Kurt Benkert in the passing game. And the reason I bring up the passing game in particular is I saw a handful of games and I saw the Miami and Virginia Tech games down the stretch, and they just seemed like a complete opposite end of the spectrum production standpoint from the passing game. And Benkert just making all sorts of plays against the Canes, just throwing dimes all over the lot, giving Miami secondary all sorts of fits in that game, and then turning around in that Virginia game was awfully, the Virginia Tech game was awfully sluggish on offense, of course, couldn't mount any kind of a running game, which has been a common issue with some of the better opponents. But just your thoughts about how the team performed down the stretch and that in particular.
Yeah, I think the team played pretty well down the stretch. Those losses notwithstanding, and they throw that loss to Louisville in there. They actually lost 3 in a row to end the season. Miami game on national television, they came out, they played very hard. I thought they had a good game plan. I thought they came out, they weren't afraid, and they really took it to Miami. And if not for a couple of bounces one way or the other, not for a couple of kind of short yardage mishaps, in the second half, I think Virginia was right there with a chance to win. The Virginia Tech game, again, as you say, offensively, they really struggled. Bud Foster's defense has just done a really good job against Virginia over the years, and this was another example of that. I think Virginia Tech dominated UVA up front. Thought the line had a real hard time with getting any sort of momentum or consistency, and that really hampered the offense for the rest of the day. But you look at the final score, and 10-0. Virginia missed a field goal to end the first half, and then Virginia in Virginia Tech territory until an unfortunate penalty kind of set them back. So that game was close as well. So I think the team's playing well. Going back to Kurt, he's hands down the best quarterback Virginia's had in about a decade. So we can't complain too much about him. But yeah, he did have games where he was better than others. And I think consistency was something that, while it improved over his 2 years, I think he still has a way to go in that regard. I've seen a few headlines that suggest that he'll have a chance to play at the next level. So I'm optimistic about that, and I'd like to see how that turns out for him.
Yeah, I saw the Indiana game, I saw the Boise State game, and I saw a quarterback who opted for the short pass and dumped it down, probably because not getting separation by the wide receivers downfield. And then all of a sudden against Miami, I saw just a different guy, and I don't see every game. So again, this is a limited sample size, and saw quite a bit. And I'm certainly not laying the Virginia Tech loss at his feet, because there was absolutely no support from the ground game. Virginia Tech was the far superior team in the trenches. And as you allude to, though, despite that discrepancy in yardage and in control of the game, there was the big pass. I can't remember. It was like a 50-yard play from your own 10 or 15-yard line. Then you hit the pass that was ruled complete, that inexplicably, based on my vantage point, was called back, that reversed a third down conversion. Then you get the big penalty that was a reaction to the possible missed call there, and you get a chance to make it 10-7. It looked like you would, and then it's anybody's game in the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game, and that pretty much ended the game.
Yeah, I agree. That's my assessment as well. Yeah, spot on.